Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another hashtag Jeopardy live panel presented by the JeopardyFan.com. I am Andy Saunders. I will be moderating the panel discussion this evening, and we have quite a panel, quite a lot of Jeopardy news from this past week as well. So let's get right to it. Let me introduce our panel for this evening. Once again, first up, the founder of the JeopardyFan.com. Welcome to Jeanie Kenkel. Thanks for joining us, Jeanie. I know you had some technical difficulties last night.
Yes, everything's perfect though so far tonight, so gonna kill it.
Awesome. I look forward to hearing your opinions tonight. We also have, returning to our panel, we have Brandon Saunders. Thank you for joining us once again, Brandon. We also have, returning to our panel, Jennifer Blanton. Thanks for joining us again, Jennifer. It's been a couple months since you've been on, but thanks again for joining us. We also have somebody who allegedly was in Brandon's teen tournament back in 2007. A welcome to Drew Scheeler, who apparently decided he was going to hustle Ben Ingram. Jerry Shaw and I at Bridge last night, bidding and making a small slam. Congratulations for that one.
Thank you.
We also have a couple of contestants from this past week. We have, from Friday's episode, Scott Blish and Nikhil Neelakantan. Welcome, both of you, to today's live panel. As I always do with the regular panel, we're going to start off with the This Week in Jeopardy History segment, and we have a bunch of things, a bunch of people's runs that started off this past week, April 21st, 2014, 1 year ago. The run of somebody, a name you might remember. She's been on our panel a few times. Julia Collins, her first win of 20 happened on April 21st, 2014. April 21st, 2011 was when Brian Meacham's run began. And his second game was the reason why I will always say, damn you, Parson Weems. So as he, that final Jeopardy caught out a very good friend of mine who happened to be one of the challengers that day. April 23rd, 2009, Liz Murphy's run started. April 20th, 2006 saw Doug Dorst, the Ultimate Tournament of Champions, continued on in 2005, obviously. And that one caught out, let's see, the Canadian Robert Slavin on April 22nd got the final Jeopardy on the Sarbanes-Oxley law against a couple of Americans, including Eugene Finnerman. His exit from the Ultimate Tournament of Champions happened this week 10 years ago. Tom Baker, not Doctor Who, but the Jeopardy contestant, Tom Baker, 2004. Interestingly enough, we had new theme music on Jeopardy back in 2001, and all the way back almost 30 years ago, in 1987. You may recognize this name, Richard Cordray. Went into government, but his Jeopardy run started April 21st, 1987. So that is it for this week in Jeopardy history, and now on to the news. Buzzer Blog reported this week that Anderson Cooper, as per leaked emails on WikiLeaks, is most likely to be Alex Trebek's replacement on Jeopardy.
Wow.
How do we feel about Anderson Cooper possibly hosting the show?
I think it'd be a great choice. He would definitely be on my short list of the people that I've heard. He and Dan Patrick are the two favorites, along with Ken Jennings, who I've heard also come up time to time as well.
Yeah. It'll definitely take it in a different direction. I mean, I don't know who can match Alex in gravitas, though, but yeah, I don't know if it's Anderson Cooper.
Yeah, I mean, I think Anderson Cooper probably would be preferred over Dan Patrick just because you might be able to get like an extra, 10, 15 years out of him. But he also has a good track record of actually being on the show and performing well. And you're right, though, he does have that gravitas that a lot of recent game shows, the hosts of which seem to lack. I mean, Anderson Cooper, he has that authoritative quality to him that I think would lend itself well to being a host for Jeopardy.
Yeah, I like it.
I mean, I would prefer Anderson Cooper over Dan Patrick, if only because, I mean, Dan Patrick is a great host and a great name for the sports Jeopardy, just because he's a big sports name. But I think that in terms of the regular show, I'd rather have Anderson Cooper.
That's a pretty short list, though. Was there anyone else?
Yeah, was there anyone else?
Well, the leaked email in question that BuzzerBlog ended up posting basically was from one of the executive producers. I can't remember. I think it might have been Steve Moscow.
It was Moscow.
Yeah, it was from Steve Moscow to Anderson Cooper saying that while Dan Patrick is the host of Sports Jeopardy, that Anderson shouldn't read too much into that, and so obviously Anderson would still be their preferred choice to replace Alex Trebek.
I'm sorry, Andy. Just to throw something out there. I mean, I had heard rumors in the past about, and I think Ken Jennings has talked before about saying that he doesn't think he'd ever be offered the position, but he would take it in a second if it was, because it's the best job in the world according to him. But has anyone ever heard any speculation about perhaps Brad Rutter, who actually is trying to work in acting and break in acting in LA, possibly ever being considered for something like this?
I don't think so. No.
I haven't heard it. What I would assume...
I figured it was something just to throw out there if it hadn't been, because I know he's out there, he's in that business or trying to get into that business, and obviously he's well known to anybody who watches Jeopardy. So.
Well, he's well known to anybody who watches Jeopardy, but how well known is he to the general public? Whereas Anderson Cooper has that big name recognition already.
Yeah, I think the most important part of the email that we're overlooking is the email was, next time you're in town, Anderson, let's get drinks. And I want to know, did they ever get their drinks? Or somewhere is Anderson Cooper sitting next to a phone, waiting for a call from Steve Moscow saying, hey, Anderson, ready for that drink now?
It was kind of the big joke at the Battle of the Decades that Brad was going to be the next host, and he didn't act like that was a shocker. Like he almost acted like, oh yeah, not that he knows something we don't, but it was that's kind of how he acted. And I've seen him read clues at the National History Bowl in the past, and he blew me away how awesome he was at reading the clues. So I know it's a little bit different, but still.
Yeah. I would say personally that I don't know. Brad seems to have that whole, that's how he would act normally. At least that's how I'd read it.
Oh.
But
he seems to,
Mm-hmm. By the way, if you're listening, I know we've got some viewers already. If you're listening in and want to provide some comments on this or any other topic we talked about tonight, remember to use Twitter and hashtag Jeopardy Live Panel, and we will be able to, and assuming I think the tweet is appropriate, then I will certainly read it out on tonight's panel. Actually, our first question came up on the hashtag earlier this week. I presume that he's used the hashtag because he wants it discussed, but I think this will be an agree or disagree. This one is from @K1989Kel, Brendan Kelly. The way Alex plays the game on Jeopardy is rather annoying. I'm going to say, do you agree or disagree? How do you think of Alex's playing style?
I don't know if it's annoying, but it's incredibly effective. I think it is the game optimal way to play. And if I had been in control of the board more in the game that Nikhil and Alex and I played, I would have played exactly the same way that he did. In fact, I'll go so far as to say that if they don't like the way Alex played the game, they would have hated the way I played it.
Huh. What is it about a style that would have been like you? Like, what are you referring to?
I would be forced bouncing all over the place so that no one could get comfortable. Looking for daily doubles, at least in the double Jeopardy round. Basically, from the moment I got there, looking for the places where daily doubles tend to show up. There's no rule that says you have to go right down the board, and I think if you're going there and trying to win, you need to play the game in the way, one, that you're most comfortable, and two, that gives you the best chance to win.
Right.
And from having played games similar to Jeopardy in other formats, I found that it is the best way to win. And good on Alex, and good on Arthur Chu, and good on Ben Ingram for realizing that and playing the game that way. I admire the fact that they've been able to pull it off.
Yeah, and I mean, I was so focused on the game that I didn't really find it annoying while playing the game. I mean, I don't know how, to a viewer, I can see it being annoying, and that's probably the perspective you hear the most, or like the person watching Jeopardy, right? But you're so focused on the game. I think I did make a couple of mistakes because he was bouncing that I wasn't sure what the category was. One of them was the bills, and and I didn't have a bill in my answer just because I wasn't sure what category you were at.
I just had that song from Schoolhouse Rock going through my head.
Yeah.
Yes. I was sort of surprised that the writers didn't go and do like just the pure government, laws, legislation category. And when the first clue came up, I was like, oh, it's going to be Williams this time around, which wasn't entirely what I was expecting.
I was thrown off, too, because it's been a while since I had a category like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that Alex is, like, if I went back on, or if they let my eligibility come back, whatever, that's the exact way I would play. This is probably the most effective, efficient run in Jeopardy I've seen in a long, long, long time. And I feel like if you have a problem with the way the only annoying thing that a contestant could possibly do is play so slow that you don't finish any of the boards. Because I've seen that sometimes. That annoys me. But as far as if you're playing, and as long as you're not being ridiculously unsportsmanlike or incredibly offensive or anything, I don't think answering questions can be annoying. Like, I don't like it. I know Alex, so I'm trying not to be biased, but that's how he plays. That's how he kind of is as a person. I know a lot of people have been complaining about how slow he was playing. I mean, like, you play at your own pace. Some people like to play fast. Some people like to play slow. I don't think anything about this is annoying. Again, it has nothing to do with the fact that I know him or the fact that he's doing well. I just think that as far as it's very easy to be kind of an armchair quarterback and say, oh, well, this person could play this way, a person could play this way. These are the same people that when they go up and are in these situations completely blank out and come up with ridiculous answers for things because they can't handle the spotlight. I think that I think that in general, it's very, very hard to be annoying in that sense.
The only thing annoying about Alex was that he was so good.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
People on Twitter will find an excuse to find you.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Wait, go ahead, Jennifer.
Anybody that's on Twitter is going to find something annoying, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's either you're too you're too excited or too
Yeah, I thought the slow pace bothered. It was sometimes a little slow, and that sometimes I find it annoying, but a little annoying. But other than that, no. Of course, when I was on Arthur Chu's episodes were airing, and the contestant coordinators were trying to encourage us as much as they could to not force bounce all over the place and just go in order. I mean, they couldn't tell us, no, you can't do that, but they were trying to come up with a whole bunch of reasons why you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Well, Jennifer, I'm sorry, Brandon, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Scott. You got it.
One of the things, I think the best way to beat people like Arthur and Ben and Alex who are using this technique is to use that technique against them. I think once they do it, you almost have to do it, or from a mathematical or a theoretical point of view, I think you're putting yourself at a disadvantage.
I mean, that's how Arthur Chu lost. Somebody got bounced against him. He started buzzing in with answers that didn't match the categories, and then he was put in a place where he had to go big on a daily double and got it wrong. That's how people like that lose. Where if you just kind of try to counter that strategy with going down the same way, you're not really going to do it. And as for the contestant coordinators, I know that it's a television show and that they have to appease the viewers and all this stuff. But I mean, like, they can't just force you to throw fast. Just because the crowd wants to see fastballs doesn't mean you just have to keep throwing fastballs. You play to win. And so, like I said, as long as you're not doing anything ridiculous, I would actually encourage the whole bouncing thing. I don't know why anybody wouldn't use it as long as they can keep up themselves. I understand that people are used to that. I don't know why it gets such polarizing comments where where Arthur was obviously being painted as this Jeopardy villain, and I've seen stuff because Alex Jacob tweets everything, and I follow him, so I see a lot of that stuff, and I don't understand where a lot of the vitriol comes from. But really, it's going sideways. It's not that big of a deal. In fact, I think I'm at the point now where, to me, if it goes down each category, kind of all 60 questions is just 12 groups of 5, it gets kind of dry a little if that happens day after day after day. Somebody should mix it up once in a while.
Well, what you're saying, what I hate is when you have the contestants who just go down the category by category, and they'll get to like midway through and nobody knows it, and then they'll get to the next one. If you're getting stuff nobody knows, stop picking that category.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Stop it. Go somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. People think that they have to keep. I know people who have been on the show. I know people who've been on the show, and then I met and talked to them afterwards who had lost their first game or something like that. And had told me that they were not in their mind, they had consigned themselves to just going down the categories as almost as if they had to. And I feel like once you do that, it's...
Yeah, I remember seeing a lot of episodes in a row, I think mostly when Julia was on, but all of the contestants would just do that, a lot of her challengers, and it was like, stop it!
Yeah.
Somewhere else.
You're here to win money. Try to win money. If you want to give up, go on like Wheel of Fortune, and then, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I think Wheel would be the easier show to give up on, because you could just be like, I'd like to buy an X, and then think about the millions of YouTube hits you'd get for buying an X.
Yeah, you get like a deal and a car commercial out of it. But yeah, I see people who are like, they introduce them as like, a nuclear physicist, and then there's like a physics category, like an elementary school science category, but since it's all the way to the right, they're like, oh no, I can't possibly pick that, and then they start with like French history or something, and then it's something that they don't know.
Exactly,
it's just annoying to watch it, and that's why we end up with so many boards not being played, is people end up picking things that they don't know, and just everybody kind of just does this for 10 seconds until Alex goes, ooh, sorry, and says the answer.
Now, how do we feel about Alex's wardrobe? I mean, sweater weather?
So I've counted 3 different outfits for Alex so far over his 6 days. I'm sure that it's just something like like cartoon characters wear the same outfit every episode, and then they show their closet, and he has just a bunch of the same outfits. So I'm sure it's just like that, where Alex this is like 4 of the same blue sweaters and 4 of the same like gray collared shirts and 4 of the same green sweaters. But yeah, it's definitely drawing some attention. I'm a fan.
I'll have to say this.
Go ahead, Scott.
I'll have to say this though. His hair is definitely much less outstanding than it was on his poker.
Yes.
Yeah. When I first met Alex, his hair was like out here, and I met him at the Trivia Championships in North America, and we had this event called Dodgeball. So it's basically dodgeball with questions. So imagine him running around playing dodgeball, and this glorious Jufro is kind of like bouncing up and down while he's answering and throwing. It was the best, and that was my first interacting with him at all. And he'd won that tournament, and so that was my first meeting with him. And so then when I saw like the hometown howdies, because I hadn't seen him in person for a while. So the hometown howdies, and it was like this. I was like, "Oh no, Alex, what happened?" But
well,
it's still pretty mighty, so I'm like, I'm glad.
I first met Alex too at Tacona. I met him at Tacona too, and I remember nobody knew who he was, and he was coming into one of the after parties, and he just had the fro, and he was sort of like quiet, and he was in the corner, not really speaking to anyone. But then he showed up and started playing, and people were like, "Oh, this guy's good." Yeah. And then when he showed up at Tacona 3. his hair was just like it was the
It was
same
out
as
of
he's having
control.
on the show right now. No, it was. If I'm remembering correctly, it was just like perfectly like nicely trimmed or whatever. And then when he showed up the next year at Tacona, it was a larger Jufro.
Oh yeah.
It was like the oscillating wave of Alex Jacobs' hair. And so it's sort of like, I don't know, he's like Elton John. What outfit is he going to wear today? It's like, Alex, when I see him next, what type of hair is he going to have?
I feel like since he's like a foreign exchange guy, like he's a currency trader, like I guess it kind of just goes with like the value of certain currencies. Like when the franc goes up,
Yes.
you know, it goes and the euro, maybe it goes out.
Yes,
like here,
some people have playoff beards, and
Yeah.
Alex has a euro fro.
Yeah. Once it gets
Quick,
back to
dump the yen,
130,
dump the yen. Alex's hair is large.
yeah. Once it gets back to $1.75, I'll know to invest. So.
But I have to say though that I think it's I think that if people weren't complaining about Alex bouncing around, the next thing that they'd have to complain about would be his clothes. I
Yeah.
think that like because you always have to find something to complain about. It's just the simple truth of like a quiz show, and Jeopardy in particular. I mean, there's something about every champion that at least one or two people on the internet just sort of like hounds on, and I think that if he
like
wasn't
every
doing the
person-
forest bounce, I
Yeah.
think the next thing that a lot of the people would be like, oh, that poor Alex, he's wearing the same sweater. If he gives me his address, I'll knit him a sweater,
Yeah,
and
but
then he
say
can
maybe
wear
that
that on the show.
$146,000, he can go get himself a sweater. Like I've seen
Yeah.
stuff like that all the time, where people
And it's such a
focus on-
minor thing too. It's
Yeah.
like he's doing a phenomenal job. You should be celebrating the fact that he's getting all of these great questions right. He's just dominating most of the games he's played in so far. And then it's like, what should we complain about today? I'm thinking it's a sweater day.
Yeah, really.
Well-
Like, go ahead, Jennifer.
Well, they do tell you only to bring 2 additional outfits. So, you know, you wonder, oh, what happens if you need an additional outfit? Well, I found out, oh, you just recycle one you wore earlier that week.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like it's.
I mean,
people wouldn't be
it
complaining
happens.
much.
And
Yeah.
now, because it happened to me, I notice it all the time.
Yeah.
Like, oh, wait, they definitely wore that outfit earlier this week.
I
Yeah.
feel like, and in fact, I feel like Alex is the kind of person, like, you know, the 10 minutes in between days of taping, and they're like, all right, you have 10 minutes to go change, and Alex would be so in the zone, he'd just be like, nah, I'm good, I'm just gonna keep this on, and it wouldn't surprise me. Like Drew said, people always have something to say, and I guess the better you do, or like, I don't think it's the better you do, but the more times people have see you, or like, you know, are exposed to you, the more stuff that they're going to say, whether or not you do well. I've seen it all sorts of. Fortunately, Alex is one of those that is making them very visible by retweeting literally everything positive or negative, which
But I think
certainly
that's
not
the way to
complaining.
do it, though. He's
that's-
owning it. He's killing it. I mean, I
I'm
remember
loving it.
He followed me on Twitter when he had like maybe he was following 140 people and he had like 30 followers. I think he's up to like 2,000, maybe
Yeah,
like
I just checked. He's at
approaching
like 2,300
2,500 right now. Yeah.
and it's great. And I know that a lot of the people who are following him are those people who were talking about his sweater or how evil he is for jumping around questions, for taking 3 extra seconds to think about a final a daily double where he wasted all of his money. Oh my goodness, God forbid. But yeah, like that's the way to do it, because you know in advance that, especially when you do really well, like Alex is like kind of shutting, like out of the first 4 games, he shut down like 3-4 questions into double Jeopardy.
Yeah.
Where you could kind of see people going, oh wow, so I still have to play this entire second round, and so yeah, especially when you're doing that, averaging 25,000 a game, that gives other people ammo, and
Yeah.
people.
So this is a spoiler. I shared a cab back to the hotel with Alex and his girlfriend, and I think he said something to the effect of, I need to buy some new clothes. Do you think? so we may see a different wardrobe.
Well, I'm hoping that when Alex shows up for the Tournament of Champions, in a perfect like dream world, he would show up to play his quarterfinal with like the giant afro, and then if he qualifies for the
I would
semifinal,
pay to see that.
trims it. He just like cuts an inch off of it, and then if he makes it to the finals, he like then gets to the close carb. So it's like the incredible shrinking hair, which I think is like a performance art piece that has to happen.
You should let Alex know.
I have.
Yeah, that
He
doesn't.
knows already. Don't worry.
I think it's time for us to move on to the next topic of discussion. This next question actually is for Scott. On its own, it's kind of the subject of my own editorial, actually. You obviously knew Alex going in.
Yes.
Now,
Yes.
obviously, it was a surprise for you to have to play.
Yes.
Can you walk us through that?
Well, basically, I got to the hotel and was down eating breakfast with my sister and my brother-in-law, who were accompanying me out to L.A. And Alex walks up to me and basically says, "Hi, Scott, how you doing?" and quite honestly, from knowing each other and having played against each other in Jeopardy-like contests online and in other quiz contests, neither one of us wanted any part of the other one. And and we said, look, we've got to let them know that we know each other. And so we get there, and I think Alex talked to Glenn, I talked to Maggie, and I said, look, I know Alex knows me, we're friends online. And they said, okay, we will we'll deal with it. I guess they let the lawyer from Sullivan know. We get through the day. I think was happening, but I'm not sure because I'm not privy to their actual the process by which they select the contestants. I think I was being held until the end of the day. Now there were two other contestants there. One was a lady who showed up late. I don't know what the reason was. I think she might have had
flight was she missed her connection.
She missed her connection. Had a flight delay of some sort. And the other person they had another person there who was named Alex. So it gets down to the fifth episode of the tape day. Nikhil and I are left, and Alex and the lady whose name. Nikhil, do you remember her name?
No, I don't.
Okay. And it turns out that it's the four of us left. Two of us have to play Alex. Nikhil obviously is a no-brainer at that point. He goes in the game because he has no conflict whatsoever. Yeah, Alex, another Alex, has a conflict with having the same name as Alex. The other lady had been told by Maggie during the meeting, Maggie or Karina, or I don't remember exactly who it was, but had been told that she was probably not going to be playing that day. I don't know the reason why. It's none of my business. So I think what happened is that the powers that be decided that it was less of a sin for me to play a friend or somebody I know than to have two people named Alex and and again I don't know what the situation was with the other woman there. So it ended up that we played. Was I comfortable with this? Not entirely. One, I knew he was a great player. To be honest, I don't think Alex was very comfortable with the situation either. There were people he would have rather played than me. And if he had known how good Nikhil was, I can guarantee you there were people he would have rather played than Nikhil as well. But neither of us knew Nikhil at the time. However, it was I figured it was either that or not get to play, and I respect Alex. Obviously, he's one of the best Jeopardy players I've ever met, but I wasn't going to duck him either, and I was confident in my ability, and it just turned out that it wasn't my day, and basically that's how it all happened. If there's any other details people want, if I can remember what they were to the best of my ability, I'll definitely answer that. But as far as I know, it's the first time or close to the first time that something like that has happened in a regular season game. Obviously, friends or acquaintances have played each other in tournaments all the time. But as far as I know, it was, at least in that way, there was a way that this episode made history.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
now, Nikhil, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say that was unusual. Yeah, I have a comment, but I'll save it for later.
Okay. Now, Nikhil, what was your perspective? Did you know that they knew each other going into the episode?
That morning, I heard them both talking to Maggie and whoever else about it. So, yeah, I did know.
So what was your perspective going up against the two of them, knowing that they knew each other? How did it feel for you?
Yeah, like Scott said, I wasn't going to say no. I'm not going on. I'd rather go on. And I mean, I know like Alex. I watched Alex play. He's going to compete to win. We were all there to win. So it was just go out and try your best. And I mean, I was. I mean, luckily, I didn't know how good Scott was. Then I'd already seen Alex play, and so that I knew how good he was by then. But you just go out and try your best.
Mm-hmm. So now,
but I've heard that Alex, from Alex Jacobs' tweets, the other Alex apparently isn't going to play until Alex is done. So he's either still waiting or I don't know. He's lucky.
Yeah, I know nothing about, but it was like I said, and Nikhil said it was the last episode of the tape day. I know nothing about what happened after that. I spent the entire next day at Venice Beach drinking and eating gourmet food with my sister and my brother-in-law. So
he was lifting weights and tanning.
Yeah, I was about to say doing like the jungle gym stuff down.
Yeah, wearing like booty shorts and rollerblading along the beach.
with the headphones with the antennas. Yeah.
Yes.
No, but I would have if I could have found some.
Now, Brandon, you said you had something to say.
Oh yeah, and Scott had told me about this. I think over the way, or I had heard about the fact that there was another Alex, which is why you two had to play each other. And I feel like if that was such a big deal, I mean, now, I don't know, Drew, you remember this, or if that even happened when you got the call. So for people who don't know, Drew and I were in the same team tournament in fall of 2008, and they had said that this was the same casting group, the same group of kids that from the pool that they had gotten the spring 2008 tournament from.
Yes.
So apparently they had an excess of kids, so much so that they created an entire another tournament. Now, that spring 2008 tournament had 2 Rachels.
Yes.
Out of 15 kids, they had 2 Rachels. In fact, in the finals, both Rachels made the finals. So Rachel Horn was the winner. Rachel Cook, who came I think in second, went by a nickname Steve. I don't remember why her nickname was Steve, but that's what it was. Yeah, and oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, Alex was asked, the other guy, was asked if he had a nickname, and he didn't, or he wisely chose not to say that he did.
Yes.
Oh, that would have been
he may have chosen to selectively forget the nickname.
Yeah,
that would have been the perfect opportunity, because if people, here's the thing about nicknames. You can always try to get a nickname, but you can never start a nickname for yourself. That you never want to be that guy. But that would have been your opportunity. Yeah. There's another Brandon. Do you have a nickname? Yeah. It's Atomic Bee Dog. They call me.
Yes.
The infamous Brainy Bee or something like that. Yeah, that would have been a perfect opportunity to make a nickname. I don't know why he didn't have a nickname. But.
Jazzy Jeff and Brainy Bee.
Exactly. That would have been my thing. But anyway, yeah, that explains that because I remember because they picked 15 people where they had another whole 15 people, and they picked 2 people with the same name. So I was very confused as to why that happened.
And never in a tournament since have there been 2 people with the same name, maybe? Unless Tournament of Champions, of course.
Yeah, Tournament of Champions.
But possibly.
Yeah. Now, Scott, you obviously faced a pair of daily doubles on Friday. One was much tougher than the other. Do you want to talk us through those?
Okay, well, I know practically nothing about cars other than that I know how to drive them. So any daily double I would consider tough in auto mechanics. So I figured I'd do what's generally the correct thing in that situation and at the minimum. Unfortunately, it turned out to be one of the few things that I actually know about auto mechanics.
Yeah, and the ones before that were so weird too, right?
Yeah.
That had to have been a misplaced clue.
I had no confidence whatsoever I was going to get it right. I was like, I just did the let's get it out of the way and move on with the game thing.
Yeah, that one should have been a 200, really.
Yeah. I think I had 600 or something at the time anyway. So it was the other daily double that ended up being a game changer. Here's what happened. I liked liked the category at that point leading up to it. The two I had actually answered. I was feeling good. I had just gotten a question on a jazz musician where I own every single one of his 60 or so albums. So I was thinking maybe it's the questions are turning my way, and I think I had something around 3,500. Alex is somewhere around 7,000, and I hit the daily double 2,000 in the arts. Art history is probably not my best category, but it's one of my top 3 or 4. And so I figure I'm having trouble getting in at the buzzer. What I'm thinking is that I was constantly early. I think I would have been better off waiting for the lights, which is what a lot of people tell you not to do. But my reaction time is fast enough where I think I might have been able to get away with it. But and I'm not probably going to get another chance to try that theory out. But basically I was having a lot of trouble getting in against Alex and Nikhil on the buzzer. And I'm thinking, okay, if I'm going to make a run here, I'm here to win this game. I'm going to have to make the money right now. I like this category. I would rather go for it now than possibly have a Final Jeopardy category that I hate and have to go for it then. I have to gamble. I'm gambling right now. And then the clue comes up. I see pretty much 20th century Italian artist and not a lot of other uniquely identifying information in the clue. Now, when I think 20th century Italian artist, the first thing I think of is Futurism and Boccioni, the futurist movement. But then I thought that I think 1903 was mentioned. I thought 1903 was a little bit early for Futurism. My recollection is that Futurism is a 1920s movement, or at the very least in the 1910s. So I'm thinking, could it have been Modigliani? And I'm thinking, no, I don't think so, because I think Modigliani is too hard to be asked about in a regular season game. That's what I'm thinking. Is because I'm thinking it might be okay in a Tournament of Champions, but I can't see them putting it in a regular season game. So I went with Boccioni. I was wrong, and that was pretty much the ball game right there.
Now we do have another panelist who is able to join us. Welcome to Joon Pahk, who's joined us once again. Thanks for stopping in, Joon. And
hi, everybody.
Hi, June.
Hey, hey June. How's it going?
Hey.
Yeah. So obviously that didn't quite work out for you on the Daily Double. Now, shortly after that, Nikhil got his own Daily Double.
Shall we skip that? Yeah.
What brought you to kabuki as opposed to karaoke?
I know. Especially since I think earlier that week, one of the answers was an empty hand karate. So, I mean, I could even have deduced that, I think. But somehow I anchored on kabuki right from the start, and I was so sure that it was the answer that I didn't even give it the extra thought to make to cross-check it in my mind, and yeah, that's it. Essentially. Yeah. I think it's the pressure of playing live.
I think this is one of the things actually that Alex Jacob does really well. He always takes his time on the daily doubles and makes sure, even when he's pretty sure he's got it, he is not in a hurry to give his response, and is just checking and checking to make sure that there's not something he's overlooking. Very, he's a very careful player.
Yeah, I noticed that all throughout the tape day, that he was taking his time even on stuff that was easy. And I think there were ones where he legitimately wasn't sure, and he ended up getting them all correct. So.
Yeah, he looks so unsure, and yet he gets a great percentage of those right.
Yeah, I think Trebek's really enjoying that now, because I think in 3 of the past 6 games, maybe more.
If he's made the reference, yeah.
But yeah, where it'll be Alex will be like, "What is Yark?" and then give that dejected look, and then Trebek will be like, "You are right."
Yeah, he's.
And it seems like Trebek just lights up whenever he goes through that cadence. So.
I definitely think I agree with Drew on that point. Now, after my editorial, actually, Ben Wiles suggested that I ask this for a full panel. Now, Also, if you're listening in and want to give your opinions, once again, hashtag Jeopardy Live Panel. I mentioned basically that the lack of collusion or the lack of opportunity for collusion is one major reason why they might allow people who know each other to play each other. But how fair do we think it is for two people to know each other going into a game of Jeopardy? I guess the example Ben gave, wouldn't this be akin to playing Learned League, where only certain players have access to the defensive stats?
I don't know how relevant it would be actually in Jeopardy, because there really isn't the defensive aspect to Jeopardy that there is to Learned League. What I think that I think there isn't opportunity for collusion thing overlooks, and I think it might have been June and somebody else was discussing it on one of the threads I was reading, is that it might have even been you, Andy. I don't recall who it was, or David Kendall, I think, also may have mentioned something about this. There might not be opportunities for collusion in the game necessarily, but collusion is not necessarily limited to the game itself. For example, I could think of a situation where you have two players who want to collude. The third player just shuts up and says nothing for the entire game, the less good of the two players, and allowing the other person to play the second person head-to-head and perhaps have a better chance of winning, and then divvy up the winnings afterwards. I don't know how much truth there is to that, but it is a possible scenario where it could happen. I think it's more accurate to say that they've made collusion harder than it used to be, but I don't know necessarily that they've eliminated the opportunity entirely.
I think without the possibility of both champions coming back, the kind of the obvious first order huge advantages that you could imagine two people working together to exploit are eliminated. But yeah, there are sort of little smaller things. And it's interesting, in the Tournament of Champions, and certainly even more so for the bigger comeback tournaments like the UTOC and the Decades Tournament, there's nothing they can do about the fact that these champions already know each other, right? Yeah. And then they play. And it's even stranger, maybe even in a tournament format where, you might have three people going and two of them might already be quite good friends, and it is possible for both of them to advance, right? You know that there are wild cards in play, and if one of them is looking in a comfortable position, you might think, oh, okay, well now I'm going to try to toss a few clues to the way of my friend, so maybe she can grab a wild card or spot or something like that. I don't know that that's ever happened, and probably it wouldn't, but there sort of isn't there anything they can do about it. I'm a little more surprised that they've kind of opened up the rules a little bit as far as regular season play, in terms of being able to tell people before you tape that you're going to be taping on a certain day or whatever. Seems to...
like you said, June. Again, I had an idea I was going to be seeing Alex there before I actually got there. I was not 100% unaware that he might be there, and but from certain sources that that I know, and I don't know how I could have used that to my advantage or disadvantage, but as it turned out, it didn't really matter.
Well, let's just say he didn't come out of nowhere, Alex Jacob.
And getting back to the topic of collusion and Learned League and having access to your opponent's stats, just for a moment, I think it's important to say though that, on Learned League, you get the full question history of your opponent, but when you're on Jeopardy, your average opponent is going to know maybe let's say 4 out of 5 questions in the category, and those are all going to come down to buzzer races. And even let's say a bad quote unquote Jeopardy player still might know probably 3 of the questions in the category. So even if you do have perfect knowledge as to what the strengths of your opponents are, as long as you have perfect knowledge, even of what questions they'll be able to answer, still 90, or probably 75, 80% of the game comes down to buzzer speed.
It doesn't even matter that much if you think they're going to know it. The only place where having that kind of knowledge can be helpful is in Final Jeopardy wagering, if it can allow you to sort of better estimate, which of your opponents is more likely to get it right and how, who you should be guarding against, that kind of thing. Right. Like if you're in a Stratton's dilemma or whatever.
Mm-hmm. And I think I made that point in my own editorial regarding it. Obviously, knowing tendencies makes it easier to bet in final. And, I feel as though I could. I mean, also one thing that was pointed out is obviously the returning champion has given away information about how they tend to wager based off their first couple of games. So I'm actually surprised more people don't use that or don't really think to pay attention to how the returning champion is betting.
Well, this is one of the pieces of information that Alex Jacob has been very stingy with in his games, is that once he's got the game well in hand, he just kind of turtles up and he doesn't ring in for the last 5 or 10 clues if he doesn't need to. He's been betting 0 and not writing anything on Final Jeopardy a number of times. So he doesn't want his future opponents to know what his tendencies are or what his good categories are, although he's pretty good in every category.
Yeah, I was about to say, I haven't done any clearing weeks.
Many weeks.
Yeah.
But that's what I was saying when we opened up, and I was saying how I thought he had been so effective is not just because he knows a lot. Sure, a lot of people go on Jeopardy know a lot, but even past the wagering and all this stuff, the intangibles are really, like, you could tell. I don't know if it was Friday or Thursday or whatever that he had said that he had been like wanted to be a game show contestant when he grew up since he was like in kindergarten. And you can tell like he's been training for it like mentally, because he's got all the intangibles down, like all the wagering, the kind of the psychology game, like that meta game, trying to get in people's head, handling the giving information and misinformation about abilities. It's just. And like I said, it's been. If I go back on like that's how you want to play, you know.
He is good at literally every aspect of the game.
Yeah, I was about to say, even if he knew like 2/3 of the stuff he knew, he would still have won. He still maybe not all 60 games, but still would have won. I'd say at least 5 of the 6, just on how he's been playing, not just the answers that come out of his mouth, but just everything else. He's just a machine right now. It's a lot of fun to watch.
It's almost like he's played like thousands of games beforehand or something.
Yeah, I know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have a question for Scott and Nikhil. I saw Alex post or he tweeted or whatever on Twitter a couple days ago, saying that apparently, and I want either of you to confirm this, because please tell me it's true. It's such a great story if it is. But somebody made the comment, did you do anything to try to psych out your opponents? And Alex said, yeah, when they found out I was going to be the returning champion, I said that I had won 17 games. Please tell me that he told you he did.
Yes. I heard that as well.
Yes. I didn't hear it.
So talk about getting some of those intangibilities down.
That's what I'm saying. Like that's like just pure. That's it.
Oh, that's so wonderful.
Of course, at this rate, I wouldn't put it past him to actually go ahead and win.
Yeah, I was about to say that the massive irony is that he might very well end up with those.
Yeah.
They don't just have to say 37 on the tape there.
Yeah.
Now, I think it's been a while since a few of our panelists have been on, so I think I'll give you guys some opportunity to talk about what you've been up to as of late. First of all, I believe, Brandon, you got a new gig with Trivia NYC recently. If you want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So I'm now media management director at Trivia NYC, and I help deal with our podcast. So if you go to soundcloud.com/Trivia NYC, we got a couple podcasts. We got one hosted by Tony Hightower that he goes over the questions of our past week in events, and I host one called Behind the Questions that will be released every Tuesday, starting this Tuesday, in fact. Yeah, if you live in New York, you can check us out at like Facebook and Twitter and at our website. But I assume that more people watch it than just live in New York. But yeah, I'm with them now. So yeah.
Okay. And I know, Jen, it's been a while since you've been on. So what have you been up to in the last 4 months since you've been on our panel?
Not much. Not a whole lot.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So while I look around the interwebs to see if I have any people with any questions, does anyone on our panel have any questions for anyone else on our panel at this point?
Well, Well, Scott, I was going to ask you, and maybe you said this, did you know that Alex was in the contestant pool before you got there?
No, I knew him actually before I had even tried out before. We actually have been at the same sites for poker tournaments before, but he was a big time pro tournament player, and I was a semi-pro cash game player, so our paths really never crossed, even though sometimes I was playing in cash games at the tournaments that he played, where he was playing tournaments. So we were in the same building but didn't know each other at the time. We met each other through online quizzing, basically.
Yeah, but you didn't know he was in the contestant pool?
No, she asked if you knew that Alex was in the contestant pool.
No, I did. I did. I found out about a month before I actually went to tape. I didn't know that he was in the contestant pool until very recently beforehand. Through some of the sources I mentioned earlier, I knew he was going to be taping at very close to my time, and I had a premonition that I might be seeing him. Let's just say.
Okay.
So do we have any other questions at this point?
I guess I have a question for Scott and Nikhil. Before you got called into that Friday game, were you hoping he would lose?
Oh, of course.
Someone was going to take
I didn't want to play him. I didn't want to play him. I like Alex. He's a great guy. He's a hell of a player. But I would much rather have played someone who just knocked him off and didn't have 5 games buzzer practice plus all the knowledge he had, rather than him. And especially considering the fact that I'd played him before. I played him before online and done very well against him, but he was due, and did it ever work out in his favor? He was due and then some, and he took full advantage of that fact, and he kicked my butt. And congratulations to him.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't see it happening, but of course, the only close game was the one with Becky on that. And before that, Alex hadn't got any of the final Jeopardies, right? So I was kind of there was this possibility that he wasn't as. I mean, I didn't know Alex before, so there was this possibility he'd crack. But man, both the ones that he needed to get the final Jeopardies he got. That's.
Yeah, and Nikhil just reminded me. I wanted to give a shout out to Becky Hammer, somebody who, if she had not run into Alex Jacob, may very well have qualified for a Tournament of Champions herself. She was an outstanding player. Very nice woman.
Yeah,
she did pretty well before. Yeah.
And before we get too far away, though, I think it's important to note that with Alex being 2 for 6 on Final Jeopardies right now, it's 2 for 6, right? I think somewhere around there.
Yeah.
That when it comes time for the Tournament of Champions, I bet a lot of the people crunching the statistics are going to think, oh, well, Alex, yeah, he won all these games, but he has this very poor Final Jeopardy rate. I think it's important that we all remember when that time comes that he was very clever at holding his cards to his chest, to use the poker metaphor, and giving that level of uncertainty when future contestants would actually have to face him in a competitive final.
Yeah, he's 2 for 2.
Well, and Alex being the poker player is, we have something we call the meta game in poker, where you will intentionally, for example, of it would be intentionally misplaying a hand and giving up a little bit of expected value now in order to stick it to somebody later when a lot of money is, or a lot of money is on the line. Mm-hmm. And I think his missing the 4 of 6 Final Jeopardies, it could be just dumb bad luck, but I also think it could be him playing the metagame.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the biggest question I have for him when he gets on the show. How much of it is, like this high-level poker strategy, and how much is, he did on Twitter. He did say there was one question where he kind of talked about his family, that he knew that one, so that we know. but
Yeah.
the other
That one,
two,
I mean, he started writing, and he wrote a great deal. He wrote like a paragraph of thank yous in that little box. But he started writing before the thick music was over. You knew he wasn't like trying to come up with bodies of water in Asia. It was just it was just to make sure to get everyone in there.
The Gaddafi one, I mean, Ahmadinejad, that's suspicious because it did say the late leaders. I mean, and he had to have grabbed onto that, so that's suspicious too.
I mean, the way the knowledge base that I know Alex has, I would not be surprised if he knew all 6. I wouldn't be surprised if he knew 5 of them. I wouldn't be surprised if he knew 4 of them. At this point, I'm trying to figure out how much of double Jeopardy he's doing that with too, because like I said, the first 3 or 4 matches, he had shut it down, except for the Becky Hammer episode. He had shut it down almost 3 or 4 questions into double. So he was sitting there with like 20 questions, like, what do I let them know I know? What do I let them know I don't know? What do I make them do? So I don't know how much he's been doing with that, if he has been at all. So it's been this. Again, I've played him in online trivia too. I've known Alex for a couple of years too, but I'm still at the point where I'm trying to figure out how much he's keeping from them. So it'll be interesting to watch, and of course, hopefully he'll win a handful more.
I think another part of it is not just about releasing information, but, you know, in the Monday game, well, he had that big lead so early, and I think there was at least 10 clues from the end, maybe 15. He just stopped bringing in, and I think part of it was that he went into that tape day thinking, I'm going to run the table, I'm going to win all 5 games today, and he knew he could do it. But it's a great deal of mental effort to be on the ball for 61 clues for 5 games in a row, all in one day. And he knew this is just the Monday game. I got it locked up. Not even going to read these clues. Not going to think about them. Not going to think of Final Jeopardy. I'm just going to like sit here and chill and conserve my concentration and my mental effort for the next game.
That is a good point. I was so mentally exhausted, having played 4 games in one day. That like last game, I just don't know what happened.
And as a competitive Scrabble player who tends to play, 7, 8 games in a day at a tournament, I can speak to the fact, a lot of the time I will try to conserve mental energy in games 1 and 2 to make sure I'm playing better games 7 and 8, where, sometimes the tournament's on the line. So I think, it's quite possible that Alex is simply conserving energy early on in the week to make sure he's got some gas left in the tank come the end.
I would never have thought rope-a-dope was a viable Jeopardy strategy, but he's got the whole bag of tricks.
Yeah.
And I even wonder how much information he's going to give away in interviews once he's done his run. So.
Well, he's still got a tournament of champions to win, I think.
Mm-hmm. He's also got a game on Monday. So
and also, Alex is a relatively shy and quiet person anyway, so I don't think he's going to be incredibly outgoing in the first place, but especially if he's got a tournament of champions coming, I don't think you're going to get a whole hell of a lot out of him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, although I've been kind of pleasantly surprised by how much he's opened up on Twitter. He really seems to have taken to that medium. He's now he got 1,000 or 2,000 followers like in the blink of an eye, and now he's tweeting machine.
Yeah, well, I was talking about how many retweets I've seen. It's been very luminous.
Yeah, I'm going to be interested in seeing this upcoming Halloween how many people retool their Bob Ross costumes into Alex Jacob costumes. Because I think for a couple Jeopardy superfans, that sounds like a viable strategy this year.
I'll get the large afro wig and I'll have the classic Alex Jacob costume.
Yeah, that's what I had to say. The early 2010s Alex Jacob.
He was actually in my audition group when I auditioned, Alex.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
And you haven't told the story.
I remember the throw. I remember it.
It's a memorable throw.
Like almost 2 years ago, too.
It took you 58 minutes to tell us this?
Yeah.
How did this not like immediately come out like?
Right? I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, Sarah from the Clue Crew showed up to my audition.
What?
I know, isn't that crazy?
And you never told me that?
They were like, hey, we have a special guest while we grade your test. And then this blonde woman walks to the front of the room and everybody looked around like, what's happening? And she's like, "You might know me from the Clue Crew. I'm Sarah." And it's like, "Oh, okay." And then like half of the room was like, "Okay, we get it now." But yeah. No, so how was Alex's audition? Do you remember what his story was?
No, I don't. It was almost 2 years ago, actually, so it was a while ago.
I saw he had responded to somebody on Twitter who had mentioned about, because obviously this week was the tests, and he had mentioned that he had took the test in like 2013 and got the call in like January of this year. So it had been almost 2 years. Yeah.
May of 2013. So
Yeah,
I remember because I almost didn't go to the audition. I almost didn't go. I was in law school at the time. It was in the middle of finals week. I had a final scheduled for the day after the audition, and then one scheduled the day after that, and seriously considered asking to reschedule, and I just said, "Oh, no." I mean, it was a 2-hour drive. It was a 2-hour drive if I don't hit any traffic trying to get there.
What city did you audition in?
Los Angeles.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, no, it's always better to do it. I've had to reschedule midterms and things like that the past couple of years with professors, and I just have
Were you ever locked in a giant hourglass when one of these midterms was scheduled? Or...
no, that would be cruel and unusual punishment. I can't. Why would you even ask such a weird question? No, I've never been locked in a giant hourglass. The week before a data analysis midterm, and I ended up having to withdraw from the school for that semester. Absolutely not true. Weird question. Moving on.
Okay. So how much would it cost for you to withdraw from the school? Like 200,000?
It would have to be, honestly. It would. That semester was. I was taking 21 credits. So to get me out of that, it would have had to been something like, I don't know, like a third of a mil, something like that.
That's reasonable. I think any of us in that case.
Yeah.
Just like grab a falafel and laugh at everyone as they go to their finals.
Hold on, Brandon. Didn't you win about a third of a mil on MSQ?
What? No. Oh, yeah.
That's convenient.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Mm-hmm.
I still like to give an anti-shout-out to NYU Poly Student Affairs, who did not let me make up that 1 week of work at the beginning of the semester. Holla at your boy. And then asked me for an interview in that same conversation. I think we're digressing a bit too much now.
Yeah, and I think we're at the hour mark of this panel, so I think it's I don't think anyone else has any other any other questions they'd like to ask at this point. I hear crickets, so in that case, I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in this evening to hashtag Jeopardy live panel. I'd like to say goodbye to everyone. Thank you for joining us, Brandon, Drew, Jeanie, Jennifer, June, Nikhil, and Scott. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all for joining us. For the JeopardyFan.com, I am Andy Saunders. This is hashtag Jeopardy live panel. Thank you for tuning in, and have a great night.